What up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I am your host, Nerd Cosa Nostra, and this is Reign of Horror. I hope everyone had a great Wednesday, or hopefully you're having a good Wednesday thus far. It's still fairly early in the evening here on the West Coast, but I know many of you have probably already started to wind down, depending upon where you're located, in order to get some rest, relax a little bit before getting back into it tomorrow. But hey, at least we're almost to the weekend. That's a plus. So as you noticed, as you probably noticed, we took yesterday off here at Reign of Horror. Didn't do a daily show, didn't do a daily upload. Just decided to take a day off, relax a little bit, kind of recharge those batteries, right? Sometimes that's what you need to do, right? Sometimes you step away from things, unplug a bit, and just take some time to yourself. And sometimes it will do you some good, just like I said, just to unplug a bit. So, and on top of that, there really wasn't that much going on yesterday in the horror genre space. Today there were some various things that did come up, and there were some things that came up late on November 4th, so Monday. But again, since we took yesterday off, we didn't cover those topics. So we'll cover some of those tonight. And it will be a pretty short show, shorter than normal, because again, not much has been going on this week. I imagine now that many things have been completed. We'll start to see some more news start to come out, especially as the year starts to wind down, and as studios start to kind of put their plans together for the upcoming year, as far as what's going to go into production, what's going to get released, things of that nature. So yeah, I'm excited to see what the new year will bring here in the next month and a half. Hopefully we'll have another strong year for the horror genre. I feel this year was fairly strong. We did get a lot more films, I feel like, than we normally get. We got a lot more announcements than I feel that we normally get. So it feels like we're making a turn. It feels like we're turning that corner for the genre, and we're starting to get that attention. We're starting to get a little bit more eyes on the content, especially with the success of many films this year. And I say success based upon when you think about obviously budget and box office results, but also word of mouth. The excitement of those films, the positive reviews of those films. So, I'll give you an example. Like one film that we watched here at the Reign of Horror recently was The Substance. And I will do an episode, a quick episode movie review of The Substance. But I will say this for now. It had me. I was loving it. I was involved. It was one of those things. Okay, I want to see what's going to happen next. How is this going to play out? It had me for about 99.98%, right up until the last 5 minutes of the film. And what took place in the last 5 minutes of the film just had me think to myself, really, this is how this is going to end, or this is how this is going to play out a bit. I'm not going to spoil it, because I know, even though the film was out in theaters a while ago, I know it didn't get necessarily a wide release, and from a streaming perspective, it's very limited on where you can stream it right now. So while I will do a review on it, it'll be a Actually, no, we'll probably do a spoiler review, but obviously we'll label the video as appropriate. We'll make sure we start off the video and have put spoiler up here on the screen, so everyone knows this will be full of spoilers. This one's just a little bit difficult because, again, streaming it's very limited on where you can stream it. So I know the reach for many people is going to be limited. But I definitely think it's a film worth discussing and worth reviewing. Again, it had me up until the last 5 minutes, and that's unfortunate. But overall, I still thoroughly enjoyed the film. I will definitely watch it again, because it's going to be one of those films I want to go back and watch and kind of pick some things apart and look for some of the nuances that I may not have caught the first time around, because you're just paying attention so much to the story. But again, I definitely think it's a film worth checking out. it's one of those films where it does feel like a breath of fresh air for the genre. It doesn't feel like, again, as I've said before, like a rinse and repeat of things we've seen before. So if you haven't seen it and you have the means to rent it or purchase it, I think right now, again, the only places I know you can purchase it, I think you can't even rent it unless they've updated it recently. But I think the only places you can actually then purchase it from a streaming perspective is either going to be through Apple or through Amazon Prime. So if you have the means, I maybe check it out. If you don't necessarily feel comfortable, confident you're going to like it enough to spend the money to purchase it, then obviously try to obviously wait to rent it when it comes available for rent, or maybe when it becomes streaming more broadly. So either way, put it on your list, check it out when you can. So all right, so we're going to jump right into our topics for the evening. So first topic that we are going to cover, and you gotta love all these ads, right? So first topic is Neon officially launches For Your Consideration Oscar campaign for Longlegs. So let's just jump into this. This is a pretty short one, so let's just jump into the content and I'll give my thoughts on it. So one of this year's most talked about horror movies, director Osgood Perkins' Longlegs was released into theaters in the wake of one hell of a marketing campaign back in July. The film scaring up over $109 million at the worldwide box office and ensuring that it'll be topping many best of lists in the coming weeks. But will the film also earn some Oscar nominations? Distributor Neon has announced today that they've launched an official For Your Consideration campaign in all categories, beginning the process of the Nicolas Cage and Micah Monroe starring Longlegs potentially finding itself on the Oscars stage next year. So here we see looks like they're putting in for Best Director, Original Screenplay, Actress, Supporting Actor, another Supporting Actor, and a Supporting Actress, and looks like many other categories. So a For Your Consideration campaign is always the first step in any given movie receiving Oscar nominations, but it's important to note that it's essentially a marketing campaign that distributors undertake in an effort to encourage voters to support their movie. It certainly does not guarantee any nominations, but it lets us know that Neon is gunning for them, and it helps put the movie back into the minds of voters who may have forgotten about it. Of course, horror movies, and this is interesting, which is unfortunate. This next part is interesting, I feel, but also very unfortunate for the genre. But hopefully, with some of the things that have come out this year, and maybe with this push on this particular film, things will start to turn. So it says, of course, horror movies have historically been snubbed at the Oscars, so fans have come to expect that movies like Longlegs never have a shot of being nominated. But Nicolas Cage is already an Oscar winner for Leaving Las Vegas and an Oscar nominee for Adaption, and that built-in respect from Oscar voters could go a long way in at least getting Cage a nomination. The Academy Awards air in March 2025. Stay tuned for more. So that's it. So yeah, I'll get on that last part. I think that's unfortunate because there are a lot of good actors and actresses out there who are putting in the work and giving some just phenomenal performances in various horror films. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying, I would agree the vast majority of horror films, they're not Oscar-worthy films, right? Especially when you start to compare it up against some of the other films that get put out that year. They're not. However, there comes a point in time when we start to make that turn, and films like Longlegs, and I think even films like A Late Night with the Devil, I think deserve to be or should be considered or looked at or have that opportunity to say, hey, this is something new for the genre, or look what this film garnered as far as attention, as far as fan recognition, box office results. I mean, these aren't just some of these aren't just your typical slasher storylines where you're chasing a group of teenagers and then they're getting retired one by one, right? And then ultimately one or two live to take out the villain. That's not always necessarily the case, and that's not what we're seeing much of anymore. Don't get me wrong, we're still seeing those types of films, but we're starting to see an evolution of the horror genre where we are starting to get some fresh ideas, some new things to the table. And when things like this come up, I think it absolutely should be in conversation of awards if it deserves it, rightfully so. If it deserves it, don't do it just because, right? Obviously, we don't want to just hand out awards just to hand out awards for a movie that's no good or mediocre. But if it's Oscar worthy or award worthy, it needs to be on the table for consideration, regardless of the genre. So I hope it does get some nominations. I think that'd be great. I think it'd be great for our genre and for us to get some more recognition and to get more eyes, not just from awards, but maybe from studios when it comes to funding projects, when it comes to putting things out there more from a more wide release, not just going right to streaming or going to one or two streaming platforms and that's it. A wide release on some of these, I think would do us a lot of good. So hopefully this works out. Hopefully they'll be able to get some nominations out of this. Even one or two would be great. So, all right, moving on to our next topic, the Blair Witch. If you're old enough to remember the Blair Witch Project, I find this pretty interesting that we're going down this path, especially after obviously the first one was a success because it was a fairly new take. It was a fairly new approach for film at the time, and then obviously we all know the travesty, the disaster that was the sequel to the Blair Witch Project. But nonetheless, the Blair Witch Project creators have not been consulted about the Blumhouse re-imaging. So, where are we going with this? So, this year marks the 25th anniversary of the release of the 1999 hit The Blair Witch Project, and to mark the occasion, Lionsgate announced that they're developing a re-imaging of the film with Blumhouse Productions. Lionsgate and Blumhouse have made a multi-picture pact that will see Blumhouse producing new takes on horror classics from the Lionsgate library, and the Blair Witch Project is the first project on that slate. That announcement was made several months ago, and now during a conversation with Film Stories Blair Witch creators Eduardo Sanchez and Daniel Myrick, let it be known that no one at Lionsgate or Blumhouse has consulted them about the re-imaging. So we got some quotes down here. So let's just jump right to the quotes. So Myrick told Film Stories that seeing the franchise go on without them is always a little bittersweet. I mean, Ed and I have always had subsequent ideas that expand on the universe and the world that was created for Blair. We've always thought that there's a lot more in that whole universe. So then Sanchez added, like Dan said, it's bittersweet. We still love the IP, and we've been thinking about it for more than 25 years now. And again, we don't expect to write and direct these movies. We understand how Hollywood works, and they're always looking for the shiny new object, the new filmmaker. And there's a lot of super talented people out there that can make a great Blair Witch movie. To be included again would be nice, even if they don't listen to us, just to pick our brains. And again, like Dan was saying, we have a little bit of a fan base that's dedicated to the original movie, and it would be good press for them to bring us back in. But we'll see what happens. So, and that's pretty much where it ends off. I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how they re-image or reapproach this film, because the first one, again, from '99, I don't want to say I don't want to say groundbreaking, because I feel that's a pretty strong phrase or term to use for this, but in a way it was groundbreaking because we hadn't seen a found footage film like this up until that point, and many people thought that this was very real, that these kids were actually missing. There was even various news reports of one of the mothers of one of the actresses was being sent flowers, was being constantly contacted by family or friends, thinking that her daughter was truly either missing or had been retired, so to speak. Obviously, we all found out that it wasn't real. But again, in 1999, when this came out, found footage, grittiness, it fooled a lot of people to think that this was something that was real. And it did, and it was a very successful film. It made a lot of money based on the budget that was applied to it. Now, again, the sequel was a travesty. The sequel was trash, was no good. Now, my thing is, if Eduardo and Daniel sold off the rights to the franchise or to the IP, and they're now owned by Lionsgate, and Lionsgate decided to partner up with Blumhouse to look at older horror films, and it's hard to say that a horror film from 1999 is old, but yeah, I mean, that's 25 years. If they did that, they got paid, and I don't know what that contract looks like if they just took an outright sum and said, hey, we'll sell you the full thing for this amount of money and we're done, or if there's some sort of deal where there's residuals, where if, as you know, the film is streamed, or you know, physical copies are sold, digital copies sold, or if anyone decides to do any additional sequels, then they get like a percentage of the profit. Then either way you look at this, you got paid. Simple as that. You got paid. So I don't. While you might think it's nice if these studios, production companies, whatever, reach out to you to get your thoughts or opinions, they don't have to. This is a business. They have no obligation to reach out to you to say, hey, this is what we're doing with the project that you kicked off 25 years ago. Are you good with that? Hey, can you give us your thoughts or ideas? They don't have to do that. And nor do I think they necessarily should do that, especially if you're getting paid or got paid that you agreed to. Again, it's a nice to have, but it's not something that they, like I said, that they're obliged to do. So now, as far as the reimaging of the film, if you can keep the grittiness, if you can keep the realistic aspect to it, great. Let's see what you can do. But if it's gonna feel like, yeah, there's a lot of money behind this, and it just doesn't bring that same scare factor, fear factor, you know, eeriness to the reimaging, it's just going to feel like another reboot, another remake of something that was successful, and then you're just trying to capitalize off the name, because that's what the sequel did. The sequel absolutely tried to capitalize off just the name itself, and it was no good. So if you're going to do a reimaging, hopefully you can recreate some of that same magic that was created then. Again, meaning from how the film looks and feels, versus again throwing some money at it and polishing it up, and it just feels like another found footage film that we just don't necessarily, not that we don't need it, but that it just doesn't serve a purpose. So, but I will be interested to see, you know, what it looks like or what story they're going to go with, unless they're just going to try to repurpose the same story a bit and change it up. But yeah, let's see what they get. But as far as the original creators go, you got paid. It's been 25 years. Time to move on. So next topic. So we all know the story of Terminator: Dark Fate. I mean, we all know the story of how the Terminator franchise has gone, especially since Terminator 2, from 92, 93. It seems like every Terminator film after that has been very hit or miss, and the audience that it seems to hit with is very small. So. So we obviously had Terminator Dark Fate, which was the last one that's been done. Hopefully it will be the last one done for a while, because again, it just seems like, I mean, okay, so I think since Terminator 2, various Terminator films have had some shining moments in them, but overall as films, they just never seem to fully bring it. And again, and maybe that's an unfortunate situation where you have the first two films, especially the second one, being held at such a high regard, and still holds its own today. It's hard to try and top something like that, and every time they try to, it's always compared, it's always held up against Terminator 2 Judgment Day. And while that's unfortunate, I think that's just the reality of the industry. It's going to be the reality of this franchise. I think as long as they keep making Terminator films, that's just what's going to happen. So this small article goes on. Tim Miller says James Cameron wanted the retiring of John Connor to happen in Terminator Dark Fate. So let's just jump down right to the quotes here. A large amount of the criticism came from the retiring of John Connor, who was an important figure of the franchise. Director Tim Miller recently spoke with Variety and talked about how James Cameron wanted this submersive element to happen in the movie. Miller explained, "I'm a nerd, so I'm trying to do what I would want to see as a nerd. Now, my Terminator movie didn't exactly set the world on fire, even though I approached it with that principle, which goes to show," he continues, "nobody sets out to disregard someone's closely held childhood dreams. It's no cause for vitriol. A lot of people didn't like Terminator Dark Fate for reasons I had nothing to do with. One, because it was the sixth... one, because it was the sixth film, and another because we retired John Connor at the start. But if James Cameron wants that to happen, which I agree with, by the way, then that's what you do." So then James Cameron came in at kind of at top, added to this. Cameron would recently hold firm on his stance on the film. "We achieved our goal. We made a legit sequel to a movie where the people that were actually going to theaters at the time that movie came out are either no longer with us, retired, crippled, or have dementia. It was a non-starter. There was nothing in the movie for a new audience." End quote. As such, the box office numbers were a disappointment, and least compared to what James Cameron is used to. Quote, "Our problem was not that the film didn't work. The problem was people didn't show up. I've owned this to director Tim Miller many times. I said I torpedoed that movie before we ever wrote a word or shot a foot of film." And that's where it ends off. So, and that's unfortunate. I mean, most creators, so I'm speaking from Tim Miller's perspective, that's unfortunate for him. But I mean, you can't say that, he agreed with James Cameron's decision for the character. So if you agree with that decision, then accept the consequences that your film is probably not going to land well for audiences, especially for a character that many people believed should have survived, especially if they returned after Terminator 2. You took the character through that entire film, going through all the ups and downs. They survive, and then when you create what you're calling a true sequel to that film, and then you retire them within the first 5 minutes of the film, what do you expect is going to happen? Now, don't get me wrong, the actor that played John Connor in Terminator 2 is obviously much older now, so we can see from this picture it was probably a lot of CGI. I don't think there was any de-aging. They could have even used old footage film to get the facial features just right for those 5 minutes, and then got rid of the character. But you can't say, well, if that's what James Cameron wants, then fine. But I also agree with James Cameron on the approach for the character. Well, then you own the fact that the film didn't do well or wasn't a success just as much as James Cameron is. And James Cameron, as far as him saying that, well, this film was made for people who either aren't around anymore or have all these other things going on, which if that's your approach to making a movie, then just don't make the movie, because then you can't say, well, then people didn't show up, because if you're believing that the people that would have shown up have all these problems, well, then you're making the movie for all the wrong reasons. Don't make the movie, or don't get rid of the character. It's that simple. I mean, this isn't rocket science. And again, if that's your approach now to films, maybe just stop making films altogether, James. Again, I'm not a James Cameron hater. I like a lot of James Cameron's films, but when it comes to the Terminator franchise, I feel like it's just, again, ever since Terminator 2, it's just, let's just keep either bringing Arnold Schwarzenegger back when something doesn't work out, and we're just going to keep relying on a mediocre story, but with hopes that the Terminator name will carry it through the box office and bring the money in. We're not at that place anymore. And Terminator 2, as simplistic as it, looking back on it as it is, it still had a good story, especially coming off of the original film from '84. It was a great new approach, and you were fortunate enough to have some of the two core actors, Linda Hamilton and Arnold Schwarzenegger from the original film, still somewhat in their prime and peak of their careers, to come back and do that film when they did. Now that you don't, especially with Dark Fate, I mean, now you try to bring them back again so far along. it again, I think each Terminator film since Terminator 2 has had its shining moments, has had its moments in the film that were good, but overall end-to-end films, they're not really even popcorn action films. Right? It's just just kind of just sit there and enjoy it, and just not really doesn't have much of a point to pay attention to. Some of them just aren't good, and they're just not worth watching. So it's unfortunate, but I think both are held at fault for the failure of Terminator Dark Fate, amongst many other things with the film. But for this particular point, they both are held accountable, in my opinion. So, all right, last topic, and we're going to wrap it up for the night. Lucy Hale to star as an Antarctica scientist battling an evil entity in White Mars. XYZ launches for AFM with filming this month at Cinecta. So, let's get rid of this. So scroll down. Truth or Dare and Screen 4 star Lucy Hale is set to channel Aliens, Ellen Ripley, and the Thing's R.J. McReady in sci-fi thriller White Mars. Set in an isolated Aquila research facility in Antarctica, White Mars follows microbiologist Sammy as she fights to save her fellow crew members from a malevolent entity whose sole intention is to extinguish them all. Martin Owen is directing from a script by Matt Mitchell, Vicky Sargent, and Rue Berry. The film is set to start principal photography on November 11th, 2024. So that's just next week. And will be shot entirely in virtual production environment. Interesting. That should be. Hopefully they can get it done right, because if it starts to look bad, just from a visual perspective, it's gonna get a lot of hate. Future Artist Entertainment's Matt Williams will produce alongside Neil Jones, with Steve Griffith and Steve Jelly from Singularity Entertainment. XYZ Films is co-financing in conjunction with IPR.VC and Singularity and is handling worldwide sales at this week's America Film Market. And let's see, got anything else, like more details? Yeah, it just goes on to talk a little bit more about the actress. We have a quote down here. So she says, White Mars is an absolute psychological thrill ride, and I'm so excited to film this. Let's see. At the heart of the story is Sammy, a character I truly admire. Okay, so anything about the actual story? So nothing more about the story, but again, hopefully it's something. I mean, it mentions up here channeling her Ellen Ripley and so from Aliens and the Thing. So I hope we see something different. I don't want this to be a mosh pit or a combination of Alien and the Thing, and then here it is, right? Seen it, been there, done it. Again, we're on a good path right now for the genre and getting some new things out there, some new ideas out there. So hopefully this is one of those. Hopefully this falls in the realm of something new, something fresh for us to see and watch. Lucy's a great actress, but again, I don't want us coming off a year where we feel like we're making a turn for the genre. We feel like we're going to be making some progress going up this hill and try to reach the peak, and we start falling back into the trap of reboots, remakes, same old idea, rinse and repeat, slasher film, and that's all we end up getting thus far. And then again, the genre is just not taken seriously again. So hopefully this will be, again, going into next year, another fresh idea, new idea. Hopefully it's not just, again, another Alien. I mean, if that's the inspiration, that's fine. I'm okay with things inspiring you to make a film. However, I don't want to go into it feel like I'm watching a B-rated version of Alien or The Thing. I want to feel like I'm watching something completely different. So, all right, everyone, those are our topics for the night, and that's going to wrap it up for this evening. Thank you for joining me for tonight's episode. Again, I hope everyone had a great Wednesday. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening and have a great Thursday. We will be back at it tomorrow. If you haven't done so already, please like, share, and subscribe. It definitely helps out the channel. And yeah, like I said, we'll be back at it tomorrow. And again, hopefully, as I've mentioned in previous episodes, we're still working on a live show schedule. So the plan and the hope is to get that button down over the next couple days. And yeah, you might see us start doing some live shows going into next week. And if we do that, we might... if we do a live show on some days, we may not do a daily drop, and then on those off days with no live shows, we'll look to do daily drops. And then again, as I've mentioned, we're going to start doing some movie reviews. Some quick daily drops, or quick drops on movie reviews. Nothing too crazy. But if we are going to do spoilers, we will make sure to call it out, so going into the episode, full on spoilers. So if you haven't seen a film, or if you are planning to see the film, do so before watching it. Or if you don't necessarily care about being spoiled, check out the video, go see the film, and tell us what you think as well. So, all right, everyone, thank you again for joining us, and we will see you at the next one. Peace.